30 Odd Minutes is sponsored in part by Digital Dowsing. Who are you powered by?
For the next 30 minutes, we will explore the unexplained. From mysteries beyond our galaxy to ghostly phenomena in our own backyard. We will dive into our psychic abilities and explore everything from conspiracies to the just plain weird. Welcome to 30 Odd Minutes. If the truth is out there, we will find it. But only by sheer accident.
Hey! Yeah. Welcome to 30 Odd Minutes. It's so great to have you back. We've missed you guys. Tonight we've set the mothership down right under a full moon because we're talking about werewolves. And just to be extra cautious, I have a silver bullet. Sadly, I have nothing to fire from, so that's going to be a little bit of a challenge. But that's how we roll here. Of course, want to say hi to our brand new fancy control center. First, Mr. Andrew Lake. How are you, sir?
How you doing there, Jeff?
Doing good. And of course, with him as always, Matt Moniz.
What's up, Jeff? Sorry about the landing. I was texting.
Yeah, it's always so rough. How's the new controls working out there?
Little twitchy, but she handles all right.
Yeah, we got to break this in. You know, we keep fixing this place up. But everything else good with you guys?
Yep, doing
Excellent.
fine. Doing fine.
Anything new and exciting?
Well, we do have some people to say hello to on Cheshire TV in New Hampshire. We're very glad to see that these people are tuning in and watching us every week. And by the way, we can see you too.
Ooh.
Put some clothes on, for God's sakes.
Oh, nasty. Hey, do you guys have your silver bullets?
Yes, right here.
Okay, good. That's all right. Excellent. So if we are attacked, we're set. Zombies or werewolves, we're good. We totally got this covered. Okay, it's an amazing subject, one that goes back a long, long way. And of course, we had to ask our own resident scientist, Dr. Dreck, what he thought about werewolves. Here's what he had to say.
Greetings, oddballs. This is Dr. Dreck here. Today we're talking about wolfmen and werewolves. And I've always thought it would be cool to be a werewolf. So I've been working on a serum to turn myself into one. I've needed help this time around, so I had to hire a lab assistant from a temp agency. His name is Lou. He's not too bright, but what can you do? Well, here he comes now. Hello, Dr. Dreck. What are you talking about? Werewolves. I give up. Werewolves. I don't mean werewolves. I mean werewolves. I don't know. I'm asking you. If I was asking you where the wolves were, I'd say so, but I meant werewolves. You keep asking me, I don't know. If I knew where the wolf was, I'd tell you. I'm not asking you. I'm telling you. Telling me what? Werewolves. I don't know. Look, I'm talking about the legendary creature, a werewolf. So, for example, let's just say that I'm a werewolf. That means that tonight, when the moon is full, I turn into a wolf. You and a million other guys. I could tell you limb from limb, you idiot.
Thank you, Dr. Dreck. Always enlightening, always entertaining when we throw it to you. Okay, you know what they say? Ow! Is there a full moon out tonight? Because the mothership is hunting wolfmen. Upright canines, werewolves, and creatures of legend. But are they just stories, or is there something more to it? Stories of werewolves go back many centuries, but what are they based on, and are they still here? Tonight's guest says they are. She's America's foremost authority on modern-day werewolves. She's written numerous books on the subject, but her latest is Real Wolfmen, True Encounters in Modern America. You've seen her on the History Channel, Inside Edition, and Fox News, just to name a few, making her triumphant return to 30 Odd Minutes. Please welcome live from southeastern Wisconsin, Linda Godfrey. How are you, Linda?
Hello.
Welcome back.
Great, thanks.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, when you were here, 2 years ago, you talked about the Beast of Bray Road, another upright canine. Can we do a quick recap and ask you, is there any new developments with that story?
Well, the Beast of Bray Road was kind of where it all started for me 20 years ago when I was working as a mild-mannered newspaper reporter and found out people in my own hometown of Elkhorn, Wisconsin were seeing what they called a werewolf, for lack of a better word, just outside of town on a short stretch of road called Bray Road. And it stood between 5 and 7 feet tall, had pointy ears on top of its head, a long muzzle, all the hallmarks of a classic werewolf. And then I found out our county animal control officer was indeed keeping a manila file folder that he labeled werewolf, because all these reports were coming into him from people saying, I saw this thing. I don't know what it was, but if there was such a thing as a werewolf, this would be it.
Okay. And any new developments in the last couple of years since we checked in with you last time? I mean, like you said, tons of sightings, but anything new?
Right. Well, the sightings continue sporadically. They're a little bit rare there, but they continue everywhere else, all across, not just Wisconsin, but the whole United States. And I still, after 20 years, average 1 to 3 reports a week.
Oh my gosh. Okay, before we get into that, let's start at the very beginning. When is the earliest mention of a wolf man, a canine, an upright canine, historically, folklore, and otherwise?
Well, you can go back at least to the ancient Egyptians. There are animal-headed, godlike or priest-like figures carved in really, really old petroglyphs. But the ancient Egyptians had a god of the underworld called Anubis, which, strangely enough, a lot of my eyewitnesses compare to what they've seen because of the upright pointed ears. This was actually a jackal-headed god, and it was supposed to lead dead people down to the underworld. So that's going back quite a long ways.
Okay, but they stay with us, and that's the interesting thing. I mean, the ancient Egyptians, the Romans, of course, right?
The Vikings.
The Vikings, and they never quite go away. And why is that? Is it just myth that gets carried on, or do you think there's something more behind it?
Well, I think there are a lot of reasons. One reason might be the idea that dogs are and wolves are sort of natural scavengers of carrion, and in places where there were battlefields and people would see a lot of dead being scavenged by canines, it just sort of comes to be a general connection between the two. But there's also the closeness between man and dog as the earliest domesticated animal. We've always had a connection with canines. And I think early hunters probably admired the hunting ability of wolves and dogs and sought to sort of take those qualities into themselves, maybe through magic ritual, maybe through costume, but somehow we've always related to canines.
Okay, but do you think, I totally get what you're saying about relating to them, man's best friend and all that other stuff, but what about the leap from, a loyal animal and a scavenger to upright, maybe a little more intelligent, a little more dangerous than just a dog or a wolf?
Exactly, yeah. And the things that most people are reporting to me today in the United States are not like your classic werewolf, and we get most of our ideas about werewolves from the Middle Ages in Europe when they had all the witch trials, and anybody that had hairy palms or a unibrow, or any other strange characteristics would be branded as not just a werewolf but a witch and probably burned at the stake. And lots of the things that we think about now, like the full moon, the killing with the silver bullets, actually comes down to us from early Hollywood films. So, what people are seeing today are not like Lon Chaney sprouting whiskers, growing fangs, the tortured convulsions. They're seeing something that seems like pure, there you go. Not that. What they're seeing is a canine with pointed ears, fangs, a muzzle, walking on little dog legs, very, very different from a human. Right,
okay. But there's also...
But upright.
I'm sorry, what?
But upright.
But upright, right. Now, there's also a medical condition called hypertrichosis, and we have a photo of that, also known as werewolf syndrome. Some people do have body hair growing all over their face. So certainly, as you said earlier, people would be branded a witch for a unibrow. My goodness, imagine this poor person, this true condition. Do you think this mixes with the legend? Does this support it, or is this something that's separate and modern?
I think that it's separate, not modern. We've known that these people have been kind of a subset of the human race. They're fully human, though. And the thing is, they don't have pointed ears, they don't have muzzles and fangs, they don't have any sort of canine anatomy. They're just humans with a lot of furry-style hair. There's one family in Mexico, the Gomez family, that has many members.
Yep.
And they're in circuses. There's a famous Chinese guy. So these people become celebrities, and they're not hiding out, and there aren't enough of them to account for all of the many sightings that we've had.
So what are these things? Are they an actual creature? Are they something that's a little more paranormal? What do you think is going on here? Is this a cryptid, or is this something interdimensional? What's your thoughts?
Well, I've been studying these things for 20 years now, Jeff, and I still can't say for sure one way or the other. There are lots of theories, some that sound sort of rational, some that sound really crazy, and until I have one, caught by the tail in front of me, I'm not going to say that for sure it's this or that. But a couple of theories that seem reasonable to me are, my top one is probably what I call the Indigenous Dog Man, which is that they are some sort of subspecies of wolf or maybe wolf-dog hybrid that has learned or adapted to walk upright, which is not impossible for canines. You can go on YouTube and Google or search merengue dancing dog,
right,
and you'll see they can really walk upright nicely when they're trained to, or in the wild perhaps if they lost a forelimb and they had to just to get around. But normally they don't. However, there are advantages. And this is pure conjecture. It's not any kind of science, but it's just my speculation as to how this might have happened in the wild.
Sure.
Is that they generally learned that this way they could free their forelimbs, they could carry their dinner away in their arms rather than having to drag it in their mouth where everybody else could have a swipe at it, on the ground. And I can see various reasons where this might have been advantageous. So that would be my best guess.
Okay.
At a logical explanation. But there's a whole world of other explanations.
Of course there are, of course. Okay, Matt Moniz wants to jump in. Matt, what say you?
What about the possibility of it being a misidentified bear? Now, bears are ursines, which are related to canines, and they have, in some cases, pointed ears, and they walk on their hind legs quite well and have been known to literally pick animals up, kills, and walk away with them in their arms. Now,
Sure.
The bear has a muzzle just like a dog does, and they could be very easily misidentified as a walking canine.
Yeah, what
Right.
about any chance that these are mistaken for bears?
I think that there probably have been some misidentifications over the years. However, not often enough, and most people who get a good look will say, I know what a bear looks like.
Mm-hmm.
They've got that wide triangular head, their legs are short, they walk flat-footed, whereas these creatures walk on their toe pads, or the fancy word is digitigrade, which is an entirely different look, and they're much thinner, and not so bulky as a bear. And especially people in Wisconsin will say, I've seen bears all my life. This was no bear.
Well, let's talk about some of the sketches you sent us, because witnesses have had reports. Let's look at, like, the dog cat, for example. Yeah, that certainly doesn't look like a bear.
No.
Talk to us about this witness.
That's something a little bit new. And the witness who inspired this drawing, and actually I've suddenly started getting these from different parts of the country. I had another one from Alabama, another one from California, but he was hiking in the canyons not too far from LA, really, and has encountered this creature several times. He also encountered it in Florida. And Lee Ehrlich is a master diver, actually excavates and searches for haunted shipwrecks.
Okay.
So he's quite an outdoorsman, and he has seen it enough times, and he approved that sketch and said that that looks a lot like what he saw.
Now, is there any commonality with the witnesses? Are they fearful? Do they feel like this thing is completely out of place in time, or it's just an animal that they hadn't seen before?
Well, most witnesses feel that it doesn't do anything necessarily that a natural animal couldn't do, except it always seems uncannily intelligent and maybe just acting in a way you wouldn't expect an animal. For instance, they'll say, I was surprised because it seemed angry that I saw it. They ascribe these emotions to it. And when's the last time you heard somebody say, well, I saw a bear. I felt it was really angry that I saw it. Bears don't care. They just do what they're going to do. Either they lunge at you or they run away.
Right.
Or chase Jeff down railroad tracks.
That's right. They do that. Funny story. Matt watched a bear chase me down railroad tracks at the Mount Washington Hotel. So, and I feel like he felt angry and jealous of my ability to run.
Well, I'm glad you lived to tell the story.
So am I. This would have been a terrible show without it. So no, that's true. They so interesting though. They feel like there's an intelligence and emotion behind it.
Right.
But have you heard any accounts of people being attacked or anything like that? I mean,
Well, here's the interesting thing. In 20 years, I've only had one report of an injury. Although people have been chased, they felt like it was going to eat them. They'll say things like, "I thought I was lunch. I thought I was dead meat." They have an extreme fear response. But in almost every single case, the creature, just as he gets up to them, runs into the bush or the cornfield or whatever cover is nearby. And he's never caught out without some kind of cover to disappear into. So I've only had one incident, and that was a man from Quebec who ran into one while alone out on a trail. And the creature lunged at him, and the man thinks it was an accident. He thinks the creature just meant to go on by without hurting him, but scratched the man's torso and hip. And the man sent me a photo of it, which I can't prove was made by a dog man, but
Sure.
is consistent with, a tear that a sharp animal tooth would make.
interesting. Okay, Linda, we're going to take a quick break for the news. When we come back, we want to hear more about real Wolfmen encounters and hear about some of your other cases. Great stuff. Be right back after the news.
An organization called UFO Sightings Daily has reported on a video from China that shows what they say is an extraterrestrial time traveler saving a man's life. The video was shot at night by a traffic camera monitoring an intersection. The footage shows a truck speeding towards the intersection as a man on a bicycle starts to cross right into its path. At the instant before impact with the truck's grill, a blur comes at the bicyclist from the camera's right, and he disappears in a flash. The man, still on his bike, then instantly reappears safely at the far side of the intersection with a strange person standing next to him. There looks to be a ring of bright light around them as they both materialize out of thin air, and there also seems to be a coinciding dark ring on the road's surface. Even weirder, the stranger's hands and face appear to be glowing. The truck driver is then seen walking to the back of his truck, trying to find the man he thought he had struck. Both the truck driver and the bicyclist look quite shaken as the hooded stranger walks off with nothing to add to this bizarre moment. Looks like somebody borrowed the super fast hoodie suit and the teleportation gloves and had themselves a little superhero fun. I'm Andrew Lake, and oddly enough, that's the news.
Thank you, Andrew. Well done. We're back. We're talking about Real Wolfmen with Linda Godfrey. But first, our own Andrew Lake, who just gave us the news. You've collected a story about a Wolfman. Tell us about it, Andrew.
Yeah, Jeff, Linda, about 5 years ago, I had a gentleman ask me at a gathering about ghosts, asked me what I thought about werewolves, and I said I was very open-minded to all subjects. And he said his grandfather from Canada, a French-Canadian, who never told stories and never pulled legs and joked and clowned around, said quite seriously that when he lived with his parents in the outbacks of Canada in a log cabin, they were attacked by a werewolf that tried to fight its way into the house. And he and his father had to fight this thing off with a shotgun and axes. And it wasn't until just before the sun came up that it left.
Interesting stuff. Yeah. And I mean, Matt, you were saying before, you think this sounds like another legend you've heard before?
Yeah, the Native Americans have a legend known as a Wendigo.
Right.
Wendigo is a wolf type of spirit, or a best described as a woodland spirit. And it takes a number of different forms, but one of the most common forms is that of a walking wolf.
Right. Linda, what do you think? Do you think some of these legends are being crafted and passed on to account for things people have actually seen?
Well, actually, I've done a lot of research on the Wendigo, and the bulk of the tribes, especially in Canada and the northern states, see it more as a giant ice monster, and it's a lot related to starvation and even cannibalism in the winter. It's sort of how they handle this cultural thing. And it, to me, in most cases, sounds really different than the creature that people are reporting.
Okay.
But Andrew's story about the attacking upright dog wolf creature sounds a lot like one in my new book that happened in Maine. And this was just a few years ago, happened to a middle-aged professional couple who are entirely credible in their story. They were sitting on their front porch one night, about 10:30, having a nice cup of coffee and waiting for deer to come to their pond, when all of a sudden they got the urge to turn on their spotlight, and there were 5 upright dog or wolf-like creatures advancing on them from 20 feet away. And they backed into their house, called 911. 911 told them to call the game warden. The game warden told them to stay in their house and lock the door, which they're like, duh, you know.
Right.
They weren't about to run around out there. And the creatures, they went upstairs to the second floor bedroom where their daughter was sleeping, looked out the window, and the creatures had somehow, maybe they followed the light or something, but figured out where they were. And there were 5 pairs of glowing green eyes staring back at their flashlight when they've shown it down in the yard. They stayed there almost all night and then quietly disappeared sometime just around dawn. So very many similarities. And these things do seem attracted to houses. I've got several families that have ongoing kind of habitation type situations going on where the creatures are lurking about every time they go outside. They have them scared to live in their own places. Other people reported seeing them swarm a house, crawl up on the roof and look in the windows, their neighbor's house, that sort of thing. So there is this attraction to human dwellings.
Well, so you've got sketches, things like that. Anyone catching these things on video or with cameras, anything like that?
Some people have claimed to. I haven't seen one yet that I think is really convincing. Most of the time, the great bulk of the encounters are so unexpected, transitory, usually at night. You know, by the time anybody gets a camera, if they have the presence of mind to even try for a camera, the thing is gone or disappeared into the darkness.
Right. Okay, so 20 years of doing this, have you had your own encounter? Have you caught a glimpse of something you can't explain?
I caught a glimpse of what may have been a part of one. I was on a lonely gravel road somewhere in the wilds of the Manistee National Forest in Michigan with a History Channel cameraman and 3 witnesses, and we had a spotlight trained down this road. Nothing out there, nobody but mosquitoes and us. 95 degrees, storm coming, 2:30 a.m., and I saw something cross the gravel road just outside the edge of the spotlight. It was gray fur, and it was upright, and it was at least 7 feet tall because it blotted out the road sign that was right nearby when it crossed. And at that point, our witnesses refused to stay there any longer because they had seen a 7-foot gray creature at that spot, as well as a shorter 6-foot-tall brown one. So I consider that I saw the werewolf spine.
Okay, I mean, enough to keep you interested, and that's
Right.
the nature of these things sometimes. What about, the skeptical argument, the same that argument people make with Bigfoot? Do we find dead ones? Do we find dead creatures that we can look at in a lab?
Yeah, and that's a good question. Here's the difference between this creature and Bigfoot. If you found dead Bigfoot, you would know what you have. You know, you've got an 8-9-foot primate.
Right.
You know, just like nothing else that there is. If you found one of these, because they're totally canine, except the only difference seems to be their size and maybe elongated paws, you'd say, wow, that's a really honking big dead dog or wolf hybrid. You know, you wouldn't really know for sure. And I have had people find things like that. I even had one farmer tell me he shot one and buried it and just didn't want anybody to dig it up because he thought, you know, it might have been an endangered species or something, and he didn't want to get in trouble.
Right. Okay. So, so the accounts continue to pour in, and like you said, but boy, climbing up on houses and roofs, that's the stuff of Hollywood movies. That's not an animal. Animals don't typically, hunt you down in your dwelling.
Right.
So that certainly crosses the line between just scavenger animal and, like monster.
Right. Yeah, it's their behavior. It's the upright stance and the way they behave, people feel that these creatures are sussing them out, and even that they're sending some sort of message, whether it's body language or telepathic. People will get all done and they'll say, okay, one more thing, you're going to think I'm crazy, but I felt it was telling me it could get me if it wanted to. It could jump in my car, not to tell anybody, or it would come find me, something like that. And people say the same thing about Bigfoot, but the messages are usually a lot friendlier or nicer, more just like, this my place, you go.
Right.
That kind of thing.
Me Tarzan, you Jane. So is there a section of the country that seems more prone to these sightings than others?
Well, they are found from California to New York, Florida, everywhere, but they're more prominent in the Great Lakes states, especially the states east of the Mississippi, A few states are surprising me, though. Oklahoma is one that's an up-and-coming one. Kentucky has a lot of sightings. Michigan does. Wisconsin, of course. And actually, I'm finding more in the eastern states. And you can kind of follow a path. I always try and map these sightings out and figure out what kind of geographical and cultural artifacts they're near. And they do seem to cluster around the Great Lakes.
And do you think that's also a function of where you live? I mean, you know, your
Perhaps.
your ear is close. I know in New England, I hear a lot more stuff because people know I'm here, and you know, quite often when I'm not in a spaceship. Right. But you know, that's also a function of it. But are we talking about woods, open prairie, farm fields? Is there any pattern that way?
All of those, and one new upcoming place that they appear that surprises me is highway on and off ramps or clover leaves, which you know, I guess it's the only safe way to get across these big interstates now, you know, and the way that they deal with it. But generally, the common feature is that there's water and some kind of good game hunting. Okay.
One of our viewers did have a question that we have to pass on. Any accounts from werewolves in London?
Werewolves of London. Oh yeah,
No?
My favorite song.
Great song.
Yeah, they're actually, Great Britain has its own tradition of black phantom hounds, which almost every section of the British Isles has its traditions of these things, and they vary a little bit. They, however, really seem more like something supernatural than these upright dogmen. And I do get some reports sometimes that seem a little bit more like the black phantom hounds than the usual dogmen. And I have to actually put these in two different categories because they seem like different phenomena to me.
Gotcha. Okay, you sent us another sketch. This was from California, right? Orville. Can you tell us a little bit about this one?
Yeah, this was an off-duty security man who also liked to hike in canyons around California, and he ran into this creature and did this very nice witness sketch of it. And you can see it pretty much matches everybody else's descriptions. It's on the toe pads, it's shaggy fur, it's got the muzzle and the ears. Does not look like Bigfoot, you know, it's a totally different animal. And I do always try and find out if a witness will try and make a sketch for me, because then I get closer to what they really saw.
Right, and that's always what it's about, those first-hand accounts. And your book is full of them. Again, the book is called Real Wolfmen, True Encounters in Modern America by Linda Godfrey. Great read, great work as always, Linda. Thank you for all you've been doing for 20 years, chronicling the weird and the wonderful. What's coming up next for you?
Well, I'm working on another book with Penguin Tarcher. I can't tell about it yet, but I also have a fantasy novel that's going to be released probably in a couple of months.
Very good stuff. All right, keep us posted. Any new Wolfman, wolf creature sightings? Wait, one last quick question I forgot to ask. Difference between a Wolfman and a werewolf, is there one?
Well, I really think that the Wolfman is something that is an entirely either it's a spirit animal that can manifest or it's some kind of naturally adapted animal. The werewolf is a traditional thing that I really don't believe in myself personally. I think it's come down through a lot of legends, different from shapeshifters, by the way, which is a whole nother bag.
Right, whole other episode.
Yep, I think we've just got several different creatures here.
Okay, good stuff. They show up again and again. They're in folklore and legend and mythos, and eyewitness accounts pour in from all over. Very good, folks. Until next time, thank you, Linda. Thank you, Oddballs. Stay odd. Yeah.